All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome. It's the Yard Sign, as we do every Monday, 7 o'clock. That's right. Man, do we have a lot to talk about. So we're going to jump right into it. Thank you so much for watching the show. Don't forget, you can now download the Yard Sign on Apple Podcasts. More platforms for the audio version of the podcast coming soon. And, of course, please help us out. We'd love to continue to grow this show. Take it. I know it's on the internet, and I know people can watch it worldwide, but we want to put it in front of the right people, especially as this election gets closer. So head on over to our Patreon page. Here, I'll even throw up our link there. Patreon.com/the Yard Sign, and every little bit helps. All right, so we can start advertising the show. We can start pushing it out there on all the social media platforms, and again, get it in front of the right people who are going to be making voting decisions this November. All right, so thank you so much for being here. As always, I'm your host, Johnny Torres. We have the usual cast of characters. Now I can say the usual cast of characters because Chris is now 3 for 3. Right? Yeah. All right, let me go ahead and turn on their mics because they're getting restless over there. Let's go to the big table. Let's see. From left to right, as always, my fluffy bunny. That's Anibal David Cabrera.
A bunny? Really?
I don't know.
That's not appropriate.
Hey, after the Super Bowl, anything's appropriate, okay? And let's see, center chair, again, 3 for 3, Mr. Chris VerKuilen. How are you, sir?
This is why we can't have nice things.
This is what
Jake
happens.
Hoffman.
This is the first attendance award I've ever gotten in my entire life.
Let's add on to the fact that Jake basically did the equivalent of flying in on a private jet and and arrived just in time for the show. We'll get more into that later. And then, of course, again, the face of the show, but certainly not the substance. That's Jake Hoffman.
That might be one of my favorite intros.
I might have to stick with that one. That one was pretty good.
That was a good one.
I like that one.
The face.
Hey, guys.
guys,
Where's my name at least? Did we not even put up where you're going to say
we
it?
have no names.
Well, all right, let me get my face out of there. So let's see. Let's throw you. I got your IG back up there.
Jake.
There we go.
Now I got to flip it because that's on the wrong side. Oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Okay,
Total mess.
and then let's see. Where's Chris's? There's Chris's. In case anybody needs to double check their spelling.
Wonderful. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And of course,
Do I get one?
Cabrera. Of course,
No,
you do. There
I
you
don't
go.
get one. I'm not on Twitter, so that doesn't make
No,
any
but
sense.
that's when we use it to
getting it.
promote
You're
the
getting
show.
it.
Put me
Yeah,
on a
it's
Facebook link, at least something.
I think we can
Oh.
move on.
You know what? I just thought of something. I can give you the credentials to the Yard Sign one, and Lauren will never have to know.
Aha.
Now you can be on Twitter without actually.
We've
being
lost
on
half
Twitter.
our audience already.
No, we're not. We're like in the 40s right now.
All right, let's go ahead. Back to me here for a second, like the Old Spice guy. Bring up the list of topics. Again, plenty to talk about. And the Super Bowl actually kind of being the least of them. So that's way at the bottom of the list. Iowa Caucus kicking off tonight, as we speak. Happening right now in a country that most people can't point out on a map. Actually a state, sorry, not a country. DNC rule changes, no big surprise there. We'll get into that. Impeachment, an update as the Senate votes this week whether to convict or acquit. Coronavirus, definitely had some of those yesterday during the Super Bowl. Brexit, we'll get into that. And Orlando Gudes, which I'm probably mispronouncing, but city councilman here causing a little bit of controversy, and we'll kind of pick that apart. It's probably not.
No, I think it is spelled right.
Boy.
All right, so let's go back to the big table.
Oy vey. I don't know if it's spelled right. Oy vey.
Oh, my God. Let's start off with the Iowa Caucus. And, Anibal's the one that did some homework on this. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Anibal and Chris start. All of my substance surrounds the Super Bowl.
So, Anibal, what do you know about the Iowa Caucus? Give us the framework here over what's going to happen this week.
So, the Iowa Caucus can be best described as a Byzantine era election cycle.
There we go. Let's start off by boring the audience with references that they don't get.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's true.
It's getting like Dennis Miller territory over here.
So at the end of the day, the way the caucus is going to be run is that it's the same way as you're going to your polling station, but you have to stay at your polling station all day, and then there are rounds of voting to figure out who is the top three. Because there are 7 or 8 Democrat candidates that are still in the race on the actual ballot. Whoever doesn't get more than 15% of the vote with inside their precinct of individuals that actually show up to vote and to stay, then they can either move to another person or they can just not show up at all. I have a really good feeling that a lot of young people are going to think that they're supposed to show up, vote, and then leave, not knowing that this is like a 5 or 6 hour process in some counties. So it's going to be interesting to see how the breakout is. My prediction is that Joe Biden, and I think this would be hilarious, but I do truly think that Joe Biden will not get first or second and maybe third place.
Is that the hot take?
I want to say in the dream scenario, it would be Sanders, either a Warren Buttigieg situation for second or third, and then a Joe Biden either third or fourth.
So what do you probably by next week we'll have a better idea of like what happens, right? We can talk about it on this podcast, like what the results actually are. But what do you predict then? Do you have like a first, second, third that you're expecting to see over the caucus?
What I think it's going to look like in legitimacy, it's going to be Biden, Sanders, Warren. I think that's what it's going to look like.
You think he's going to be first?
I think if Biden is not first or second, his campaign implodes. They were already talking about. They were already talking about John Kerry, like jumping into the race.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. I mean,
that's an old person not knowing how to use a cell phone. That's the situation.
Well, I think what's going on right now with the Iowa caucus is that I love seeing how Trump has inserted himself, and he said, okay, well, they're rigging it against Bernie already. And like when you start with that, I think it throws in a whole wrench to it, because now you've got them, the entire DNC is really conscious now about what they're going to be doing and how they're going to treat him. And you would think about the rule changes and everything too, that they're really conscious about it right now. But I don't know if that's the case. I don't know. Do you think that people in Iowa are hearing Bernie Sanders' message, like of this, this socialist message? Do you think that Warren is getting across to these people in Iowa? I mean, to me, I think Joe Biden probably does win Iowa. Like it seems to me, like, and this is based off of very little, but I think that as most of my predictions are. But I feel like Joe Biden would do well in Iowa as a state in general. Again, he did, like Obama did well there. He's done well there. I think that Obama's going to carry him across most states actually. But Iowa in particular. So if you had to ask me my prediction for the winner out of Iowa, I want to say that it would probably be Biden. I think Bernie gets second, and then I think I'll go with Warren third, and then Pete fourth.
Okay. Chris, what are your predictions? Yes, Chris is still here.
Does this actually matter? So I was listening to one of the people that conducts the poll this morning and said, well, we can have 3 or 4 tickets leaving here. So it's like we can decide 4 winners just in different gradations of winning. So it's like we're redistributing wealth as far as votes go.
Well, that's exactly what they're going for,
the Iowa caucus, but if I were to gauge it in terms of first, second, third, I would think Biden, Sanders, Warren.
Okay,
so you're going with my prediction then.
Same.
So if Anibal goes off the cusp here and changes up, we can tally the board again, right and wrong next week based on these predictions.
Again, we don't know what's going to happen in the Iowa caucus. It's going to be a few hours for us to figure this out.
So what do you think? What's your your opinion then on what first, second, third?
Again, I think it's going to be a Bernie, Biden, Warren.
Yes.
I think that's exactly what it's going to look like. My dream would be a Sanders, Elizabeth or Buttigieg, and then Joe Biden in third or fourth place.
Yeah.
If Biden is in third or fourth place, his campaign literally implodes.
Yeah.
And I would love to see that happen. And then the long-term view of that is the majority of people in the top do not have any way of surviving in states like Nevada or South Carolina. Like Buttigieg, Warren, they have no black vote, they have no brown vote. No one's going to vote for them in those states. At the end at the most, you could see a Sanders winning. Of course, he's going to win in Vermont. Is that the next one after this? Is it Vermont or is it New Hampshire?
I don't know.
I don't care. And so in that spectrum, you're going to see if Joe Biden does not get first or second tonight, it's going to be Sanders. He's going to get the nomination. And what you'll see is a fight between the most Democrat socialist, and then who's in the background that could possibly get black and Hispanic votes is Mike Bloomberg.
I still don't think there's any Bloomberg camp. I don't think there's anybody that.
Yes, there is.
There's no Bloomberg camp. There's no Bloomberg.
Yes, there is. There's Bloomberg
none.
in California. There's Bloomberg in Florida.
There's like 5 people.
No, there's not. If you see, first of all, you obviously have not seen the.
them.
He bought a lot. He is the Instagram page that
No
has 1
one's-
million followers,
no
and then you go
one's
look at the engagement on that photo, and the photo has no comments, no likes. He had to buy all the likes.
I'm not denying
It's
that.
not a real. It's
I'm
not a real
denying
account.
any of
It's
that.
the photo where it says 5 comments. You click on, and none of them are there.
It's all a bunch of robot accounts that they're just there, adding numbers on there so he can qualify to go to the next debate.
But
or
he
whatever.
is qualifying. He's
qualifying because he's buying it.
He
And
has 8% of the national vote for the Democrats.
He does not have, I don't think, anywhere near what
He
he's polling
is
at. He
polling.
runs polls.
He is a poll.
He is a poll.
He
Yeah, no.
is running polls. And don't get me wrong. Do I think it's all legitimate? Of course I don't think it's legitimate.
No, I don't think so.
You are literally seeing an American oligarch try to take an election.
I agree, and what's interesting is that it is the Democratic Party. You're seeing this.
Oh, of course.
The ones that are complaining about billionaires and the ones that are complaining about the unfairness of elections.
But he's a good billionaire.
He's apparently. I thought Tom Steyer was a good billionaire, but he's got Bush way to the back, so he's not clearly a good billionaire either.
He's going to redistribute his wealth so hard once he gets elected.
He wants to.
So hard. So hard.
So does that? Our next topic, is it not the rule changes that they've gone under now to try and I guess as Trump would say, rig it against Bernie Sanders?
So, do you know okay, I'm not going to go there with you because I just told you the answer. So the DNC. So this is what's causing the controversy: the fact that yes, Mike Bloomberg is not in Iowa. He doesn't need to be in Iowa.
Yeah.
He's said it multiple times that he's self-funding his entire campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that goes in complete opposite of what the rules are for the DNC of how to get onto a debate stage. So over the weekend, you saw Michael Moore basically have a conniption.
Oh my God! This is another one of these clips that we don't have prepared to show
But it'd
you
be
guys.
beautiful.
But after the show, go and watch Michael Moore's breakdown, screaming at the DNC about the unfairness and that how we're bending over for billionaires or whatever his message was. He was very angry.
The DNC is straight up taking it, and so I mean, again,
Family show like the Super Bowl.
like the Super. We're gonna hold off on that. I know you people came here for that argument.
Yeah, we're gonna end up about the same way. We're not gonna be much of a family show. About halfway through tonight's show.
Banned in
Demonetized.
38 countries.
So the DNC made the decision to actually not to allow. So, okay, so the way you got into the debate stage is by polls, by the amount of money that you'd raised, but also by how many people were actually donating to your campaign to show that there was actual viability of your campaign becoming some sort of national movement.
Yeah.
Well, over the weekend, they decided to remove that language so that you only had to raise a certain amount of money, and he has all the money in the world.
Well,
so it doesn't
and that's
matter.
why Trump got on, an interview before the Super Bowl and said they're rigging the election against Bernie again. And I think that, it's funny that he comes out and says it, right? Because we just sit here on the Republican side and we laugh about it and we're like, yeah, of course, DNC and everything like that. But the other side, like the far left, the people that are for Bernie, they feel that way again now. And then the Trump sticking his finger into that mess is doing the exact same thing. Like he's provoking them again, and he's right as well because of the fact that again they're removing rules. Again, a lot of the people that they think are not going to turn up and vote for Joe Biden or another candidate that's one of the more moderates, if they were to, like a Bloomberg, if they were to get the nominee. This is why, like when they end up losing the election in November and they go, why didn't anyone turn out to vote? Why didn't any young people turn out to vote and all that stuff? Because they're fed up with the way that the party works and they're fed up with the way that they've changed the rules. And you can't, and again, like we were talking about this earlier before the podcast, is that this now eliminated, if Julian Castro and Booker were still in it, they would now qualify there.
The only
And
reason
so
why
they
he
should be
knows
mad.
about those two people not being able to qualify is because I made that point earlier.
I said, like we discussed before, I didn't say I came to this podcast with this idea.
We all know
I
you
just
didn't come to this podcast with these ideas.
So the point is that you've disqualified now people that would have otherwise qualified and then ended their campaign based on certain rules, right? And so again, I look at this and I go, this is why if Bernie Sanders does not get the nomination, like you have these videos of these people being like, there's going to be riots in Milwaukee and they're going to be doing this. And like, there's these crazy people out there on the left that are going to be really mad. And they're the guys that have been rioting in the streets because like
Who lives in Milwaukee?
they're mad about, I think that's where they're doing one of the DNC like big elections or something. And so the problem is that you're isolating the left side of the vote. the way that
So
they are
bad,
been
yeah.
worried about, and they did in 2016. They're doing it all over again. And so again, I'm by no means a Bernie Sanders supporter,
Oh,
but
yeah,
you
no.
got to feel bad for the guy and his campaign
Oh.
that they're literally like bending the rules to make him lose.
No, I have no problem whatsoever.
I don't want him to win. I'm just saying I feel bad for
I
his
have
supporters.
no problem whatsoever for the DNC, that is a private organization,
Yeah.
to do whatever they want to do so that they can get their nominee to become the nominee for the Democrat Party. Biden or Sanders is not a Democrat. He's a socialist
He's not
Democrat that only
then he
caucuses
doesn't-
with them.
Then he shouldn't be allowed on their ticket, but that's not the situation. They want to also have a chance.
They're gonna have a Democrat socialist and a Republican mayor running
Yeah.
for the Democrat nomination, and I love it. I'm happy.
If they're gonna have rules changes, though, it should have to happen before the season even begins.
Yeah, you don't move the-
entirely unfair.
What did Byzantine time rules not imply?
I didn't get your reference, and I doubt anyone in the audience did.
Listen.
I got a better reference for you. The Super Bowl was just last night.
No, we're not cutting
If you
into
move
this.
the goalpost, you can't move the goalpost in the middle of the game. You don't move. You go every 10 yards, and then you have the goalpost at the end, and you kick the field goal.
But you
don't
also
move the
have
goalpost. That's what we-
referees
That's a fair segue.
automatically
It's-
letting
we're
people
not
just go.
segueing. I just
no,
wanted to
we're not
use it as a
segueing.
better-
We're not segueing. However, yes, that is a set of rules, but you also have referees making up plays or not seeing plays so that can go wherever they want to. So again.
Better analogy than Byzantine.
No, it's a good
You can't
example.
just so I guess to continue with football analogies.
There you go.
Can't just have you can't invite a quarterback in your team and be like, all right, we've used you for what we want you for. You can go be on the other team now. We've gotten to the playoffs with you, and now you can.
Could you imagine
please
a
leave.
trade in the middle of the Super Bowl?
Well, they are. They're basically. I mean, like they're trying again. They're trying to bring in new players, like John Kerry's talking about coming in, like we talked about. Mike Bloomberg thinks he can buy his way into the.
I think he's gonna buy his way into.
Well, he's okay.
the
Can
candidacy.
we talk about the most important thing that happened this weekend? Because I actually do think it's the most important thing that happened this weekend is that Trump came out and said he wants to get a stand for the debates. He said he's too. They asked him like, "What do you think about Bloomberg?" And he's like, "He's short." He wants, and he's like, "I want,"
So
and he's
stupid.
like, "I want." He needs a block for the debate so he can stand
needs a
behind a block.
box.
And
which means that he won't have a block
what's
if he does get on that debate stage.
And first off, it is a very real thing in politics, right? Like the height thing matters.
It's a
And
real thing.
if you look on stage and you see this guy that's way shorter than everybody, like it's a big optical illusion out there. He probably does need a box. But the point is that it's funny, and now it's literally taken away all of the concern over like Iowa and over like his like legitimacy and as a candidate. Like he's now again, if he ends up being the candidate, which I don't think he's got any chance of,
the party will explode.
People are going to sit there and they're going to go, this is the guy who is not tall enough to stand on a debate stage, and Trump put that on everyone's head right before the Super Bowl. And the same thing with with Bernie Sanders saying, oh, they rigged it against him. So the fact that he was able to come,
is brilliant.
And his comments before the big game,
Driving a wedge, right?
it was a distraction, but it was a great distraction from a strategy standpoint. And like this is the good Trump when it comes to like trying to be good in strategy coming into the election.
I want Trump to call him Mikey.
Oh, hi, Johnny.
Mikey.
He came out with his own names. So
All right, my prediction, because nobody asked me. So
Johnny,
my
what do you
prediction
think?
No, don't ask him.
My prediction for Iowa caucus, I think Bernie pulls out the upset. I think Biden comes in second, Warren in third, and then the rest doesn't really matter at this point. But I think this is going to be a big upset for Bernie. I think he's going to pull it out, and I think the DNC is going to have a major problem on their hands because they know deep down inside, they know the party's moved too far to the left, and come general election, if Bernie has the nomination, they're going to lose. It's guaranteed they're going to lose.
I think that he would lose the election, but do you not think that it would actually be good for them so that their base feels like they had a legitimate election, and then he's kind of getting their redemption from 2016?
Yeah, no, this is payback. I mean, because they obviously got caught red-handed last time, and so that basically opened up. They opened up the opportunity for Bernie to give it another go because at this point they knew that their hands were going to be tied.
Yeah.
And there's people. I mean, this is something Bernie's been working on for decades, which is basically what a lot of the like Tea Party folks and all that were doing on the right, which was infiltrating the party structure, right, so that then they could start to put forth the candidates and the type of people that they wanted to see elected in office, and that's how we got to President Trump. Honestly, you got to remember the smart thing that the RNC did versus the DNC, because they didn't want Trump as the nominee, was that they just said, okay, if he's made it this far, let's let it play out, and it paid off for them.
If you would have seen the RNC try to manipulate the election during 2016, then you would have seen a brokered convention.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen in this regards is that you're going to see a brokered convention. I would love to see a brokered convention at the Democrats when they have their convention.
I still don't think that's going to be what happens here.
I think they're going to figure out a way to derail Bernie Sanders ahead of time, or the voices are so loud on the left from the Democrat Party that they'll just capitulate. And I think that might actually happen, that they allow it to work that way. But then again, you have a situation where it's going to be a disaster for when the election starts in I think it's August when you get the actual nominee.
Yeah.
This isn't the first thing they've done to him, though. Like, this is like the fourth or fifth straw on the camel's back. Like, the whole Elizabeth Warren thing. This is so many different events that have led to
Because he's
them
not a Democrat.
That's fine. Just don't let him associate anymore.
No, you
then.
should never have allowed him to get into this to begin with, but you did it because you wanted the youth vote. You wanted the cool
They let him in
kids
the house. They let him in the house.
with their crazy hair and their nose piercings, and that's what you wanted.
They wanted to have all the youth votes, so they went out and got their 75-year-old heart attack.
79.
From Vermont.
How old is he?
I don't know.
78, 79.
I think he's an octogenarian. I'm 100% serious. I think he's
in his
81 years
70s.
old.
Honestly, if
only there were
a device.
Well, we don't come prepared with those devices. So
or some sort of
Is there an
technology
Alexa here? No.
that would give us access
Bueller?
to an infinite amount of information.
Okay, we're doing the Google box.
So
Give
do
us
we
a
have?
second.
So I guess, is there anything else from like this that you really want to go over?
So 78 years old. That's how old. That's how
So
old.
that's who they went and dug into the coffers to try and to get to
Literally dug
the
into the coffers.
to try and get the youth vote. So
I wonder if he's collecting Social Security at this point.
Ooh.
of course he is.
No,
Are you
he's
kidding
not.
me?
He went to a communist country.
Oh, he is using as much government aid as he possibly
Oh
can.
my God. If he and Warren are not the biggest hypocrites on the planet, I don't know who is.
Of course they are.
Yeah.
I will say this. I don't want to say this, but I mean, do you think he survives through the summer?
Well, I think the summer.
Hillary
yes.
barely survived.
I think that it's a real conversation about having like during his first 4 years, and especially 8 years. I mean, like it. You've seen it with a couple of older politicians. They get in the office where even if they lose, and I look at McCain, and it's like if you would have done the 8 years, it was cutting it very close, right? So it's a real concern. I don't think they try and brush it off when you talk about it, but it's not something you can just brush off. Like they are. I mean, even Trump. I mean, it's still like he's an older guy. I mean, he's not 78, but he's it's still something that's worthwhile.
And the thing is, like, he also doesn't smoke. He also doesn't drink. He actually eats decent.
He doesn't look like he's the biggest best bill of health. I will not give him that.
However, when he was running,
just don't check Ivanka's Instagram from this week because there's a pretty sweet picture of both of them on Air Force One eating McDonald's.
Okay, so let's not kowtow to the.
And his doctor is hilarious. He's the guy that like isn't like possibly a legitimate doctor.
I think the last thing is this. I think this is the last prediction I'll say.
Yep.
If Joe Biden does not get first or second place in the Iowa caucuses, I think his campaign collapses. He doesn't have the money to move forward. He has $9 million in cash remaining, and that's not enough to throw off a huge national campaign. Buttigieg has the money. Warren and Bernie has the money. I think Amy Klobuchar, I think she's still in the race. She doesn't have the cash, and some others they don't have the cash. I think at the most.
So, do you guys think after this weekend, because again, every week we come on here, we talk about the Democratic primaries, we talk about the caucuses, we talk about all this stuff, and we talk about who we think is going to win. But at the end of the day, like we're going to look here and we're going to go, I think Trump still won the weekend. Completely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, completely.
No one's talking about all of these things. They're talking about
Those were
his
great commercials yesterday.
His
during the
commercials.
Super Bowl.
And,
I think they were great.
And his interview
The
beforehand.
first one was great.
Well, his interview beforehand, I think, is what really set the stage. I mean, to go in and like they did like the word association with him. Did you see this? They were like just one word. If you after we give him your name, like Joe Biden's like sleepy. So it's funny. It's like it's our president, bringing down all of these other, candidates. So, take with that a grain of salt of, what that does to the discourse in the country. But the point is that he ended up winning the weekend as far as like a polling numbers go. Again, he also didn't get impeached this week. So I think that that's a pretty big win.
Look at that segue. Oh, someone is
Before
working.
we move on,
I segued so well.
Come on.
Go ahead, Chris.
chances of Bernie's survival,
So
if
close.
we move to socialized medicine and he uses it, drops by 90%. Yes, no.
I would agree with you. That
No,
doesn't
he'll
get-
fly to Cuba
he
to
would-
get
he-
medicine. If anything.
he would fly to Germany or something. But
All
yeah.
right. Back on track.
All right.
Okay.
You ruined my
Man,
segue.
That was
but
a good
it's fine.
Yeah.
segue. That was a decent segue.
All right.
I don't know. I might have to penalize you for that one, Chris. That was
Stepping on toes.
he just kind of lobbed that right up there, and you just batted it away. All
can't
right,
see
so
me.
going back to the topic list again, thank you so much for watching the yard sign. We appreciate you again now on Apple Podcasts as well, Facebook, YouTube. Subscribe, review, send us some likes, some comments. All right, you guys know what to do. So we kind of knocked out a big chunk of two topics there between the Iowa Caucus and DNC rule changes. Now, of course, this week being the vote in the Senate, which, of course, has been deflated by the fact that we're not going to see any witnesses in the Senate. I'll just start off the conversation by saying, is Mitch McConnell a badass or what? I mean, it's how do you put it any other way? Like, the guy basically put out the narrative that he wasn't going to have the votes with less than 24 hours. And then, of course, sure enough, I mean, anybody who doubts that Mitch McConnell didn't have the votes, really, it hasn't been paying attention for the last, 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they knew this before they even started. That's why Nancy Pelosi didn't want to do it. I mean, they knew beforehand that it wasn't going to pass the Senate, so I think everyone was prepared for that.
So Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz were on a podcast earlier, I think it was yesterday, and they were talking about what really happened in the background and what was happening. And there was a part where Lindsey Graham was like almost about to say like cluster F. And he's like, can I really say that? And they're like, no. But I think what was happening is that there was a good chance. I think there was a good chance that they were going to vote for witnesses. And the moment you allow for that, and this has been a PR nightmare when it comes to Republicans, because there have been witnesses. There have been 17 witnesses. There have been almost 200 hours of testimony and documentation. So it's not like you need additional witnesses for something that you said was so important that had to get out of the house before Christmas, and so it needed to go through it. And then you have Nancy Pelosi sitting on the articles for a month. So at the end of the day, you knew it wasn't going to pass, but there was a lot of people having problems with the narrative that the Democrats were having to put out. And at the end of the day, you had two people vote for the witnesses, which were Romney and Susan Collins, which, again, they're in districts. Susan Collins is in a district that she needs to make sure that she's very careful in, because it's becoming a purple part of that part. Romney, on the other hand, is just being an ass and wanted to just stick it to the president again, because I don't understand why you would be so controversial in this situation.
My opinion on Romney, I think he's like super salty that someone of his stature did make it to the White House. But someone like Donnie from the Queens, Donnie from the block did make it to the White House, and he's, got his striped red tie, and Donnie comes in wearing
whatever he wants, long tie.
Yeah.
I think for me, like what I want to say about impeachment, and kind of like be on the record for saying about impeachment, is that I think I take a little bit of a more neutral view of this, because again, I think we've talked about impeachment a lot as we've gone through the past couple months. Like, I don't think articles of impeachment ever should have been brought up. I think that the argument should have been that this is not an impeachable offense.
Correct.
That quid pro quo of withholding aid from another country is something that happens in 192 other countries from every single president in the history of our country. That's my argument.
And
for
that's
it.
where it shifted halfway through that.
Because they did a bad job of sticking to that narrative.
Correct.
They were talking about
Correct.
all these other things, and they got caught lying about other pieces of it. But to me, like, that's not an impeachable offense. I think that's how the president, whether people like it or not, whether it's out in the open or behind closed doors, I think that is the reality of politics, is that, especially when we're giving money to everybody. But now what I will say is that when you look at this week and you have a call for witnesses, I feel like in the House, it was completely mismanaged. Like how we have an impeachment process in this country where it goes through two layers of protection, right? You have the House, you have the Senate. And both of those, I feel like the American people are cheated out of a fair process because it's not transparent. So in the House, you have all of these witnesses. Like you said, there's 17, 18 witnesses, 200 hours of testimony. Well, we didn't get to see any of it, right? And they're all whistleblowers and people that we didn't know and names that we didn't know. And like, then it goes to the Senate, and then they can vote to not even have witnesses. And again, and we all wanted to see like Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and all these people testify. And so for something so big and so important, like you would think that it would work like a trial would, and where it's all out in the open. And I know it doesn't, and that's not there's a lot of rules written around it, but that's what I think that the American people deserve to see is a fair trial, right? Like I'd rather see all of these people go on. And I think in my full opinion of this is that both Republicans and Democrats are probably at fault here because you've got a process where if there wasn't a trial out in the open where all of these people had to call witnesses and they had to really discuss what happened here and like whose son was sitting on what board and who knew what at what time, you're going to find that probably a bunch of Republicans would have lost their job and a bunch of Democrats would have lost their job. And maybe they get the president, maybe they don't. But I think that just Washington as a whole never wanted any of this to happen because
but you're missing a really big point, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Is that there were witnesses? We have seen those witnesses, and that was during the House trial.
But we didn't really see them though. They were done behind closed doors.
No, they weren't.
A lot of the testimony.
We have some testimony that's behind doors. We have some witnesses that are behind doors, but you still have all the other witnesses that were already. We saw all of them on C-SPAN. If you were watching C-SPAN,
I was not watching C-SPAN. Absolutely, but
shocking that you were not watching C-SPAN.
I don't think that me and the rest of the country were not watching C-SPAN.
There was 12 of us watching C-SPAN.
But the point is that
I was there half the time.
I don't think that there was again, it's not a fair trial. I think it's a circus.
It's not meant to be a trial.
But it should. But that's the process that we should have in place for an impeachment of a president. Is what I'm saying.
You are literally having individuals that are of opposite parties voting for someone that they don't like to be put. It was never going to be impartial.
I don't think
it was always going to be biased. So there's no way to actually have a trial for this. Hence why the Supreme Court, the head of the Supreme Court, sits as a 51 vote.
As far as legislators, yes, but I think like what Jake said, if all the witnesses called in the House instead of being in a bunker downstairs outside of the regular person's view, if the DNC's base would have seen that happen. Either they would have been bolstered or they would have been softened up. Like, this is stupid. Why are we doing
it? The Democrats want to get rid of Trump because they know they cannot win in November. And because of that, this was the only other option.
I guess that this is the conversation I'm having is more of a problem with the impeachment process as a whole, right? Is that
I agree.
If we have a process in which nobody is like allowed to see the witnesses, hear the witnesses, not all witnesses can be called. I mean, imagine having like a murder trial where like they were just like, nope, can't call that guy. Nope, can't call that guy.
Murder. That's a whole other conversation.
But we're talking about removing the president of the United States.
But you're giving the articles were not criminal to begin with.
Well, the
reason why this is completely different between when it comes to Nixon, when it comes to Clinton. This is completely different because there was no crime committed. If there was a crime committed, then they would have filed either bribery charges or contempt of court, not contempt of Congress.
But that's
Who cares about being contempt with Congress?
But that's my point, though, is that if you're going to impeach the president and you have a process that is to remove the president of the United States, I feel like it should be more of a trial basis that's out in the open. You actually get to hear witnesses from both sides, and you have it out in the open. I don't like seeing rules from either side where you don't get the full story, where some of the story is done, but it's done behind closed doors.
The story.
The public wouldn't feel so slighted if that were the case.
I think the public feels completely slighted on both sides because everyone wanted to see witnesses called. Like, I want to see Joe Biden have to testify and Hunter Biden testify about what they did.
Yeah, but that was never going to get pushed. The Democrats were never going to.
But if this was a real
case, why
case,
you did not get. But that's the thing. You're thinking that there was some way to make this impartial, and that was not going to be possible.
I'm not saying
whatsoever because there was no crime committed during the Nixon campaign. A crime was committed that made the Republicans have to vote Nixon out.
But this is
when
why
it came to Clinton, there was a crime committed, and it forced the Democrats to vote on this.
But they had to do the same thing. They suppressed witnesses in that case too on the Democratic side. And to me, like, if we've had this happen now twice in the past, let's say 20, 30 years, we have a broken process here, and the American people on both sides don't feel good about it.
We don't have a broken process.
It is a little bit. I mean, it's not the impeachment process. I think has I look at it as the impeachment process is good because we've got all of these safeguards in place where you cannot just remove a president for, at will, right? You've got these safeguards of the House and the Senate. What I don't like about it is all of these procedural things that they go and they argue, and it's a giant circus at the end of the day, not a fair shakeout of what actually happened. And I think that, again, like, the American people are saying things like, "Oh, well, Trump has an oligarchy. We're in an oligarchy." Like, they think that about.
I don't even know where.
But that's the narrative on their side. And then from our side, we're looking at it like, what's been the calling card for years now? It drain the swamp, right? Like. This is exactly what we're talking about. Like, to me, like, if they were to have like a real trial and these guys, all these politicians were to go on trial and actually have to face what happened in this situation from start to finish, you would see people from both sides removed or in jail.
The founders made sure that this was a legitimately partisan scenario, that it had to be so blatant of a crime that there was no way that the opposite side would be able to justify it and force them to actually bring it upon. That's why this version of what they've done when it comes to impeachment is so stupid, because now it just cuts the knees of what legitimacy when it comes to impeachment. When a president has committed such a high crime and treason, is in any of the impeachment articles about high crime or treason? No. So basically,
they're not even real crimes.
Exactly.
So let's say though that there was
Nancy Pelosi and Shifty Schiff have literally blown their wad on something that means nothing.
So let me ask you then, if we had a real, like, whatever you consider to be a hard real crime committed by the president, and he was to go through this same process, and you weren't allowed to see witnesses, and then all testimony was done behind closed doors in the House, and they kept pushing it through, would you feel good about it?
I literally have read the transcripts from the phone call,
but that's not what I'm asking.
Yes, you are asking, because I have enough information to make a gender.
No, I'm not. But I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking bigger picture.
I know if there was a crime committed that I did not have the transcripts, I had no access to witnesses whatsoever, then yes, I could give you some form of leeway, but that's not the case in this situation. I have heard from witnesses, I have read the transcripts, and I think it's a bunch of malarkey. And because of that, I don't agree with where we're going at, and that's what's happening in the Senate right now. The Senate has made the decision, even if you do count it, that he did a quid pro quo, it's not enough to get rid of a president.
And I agree with you in Trump's case. I guess my conversation is more about the process itself. And if this happens again, and let's say it's a Democratic president and they're doing something that you consider to be illegal, and there's an impeachment inquiry brought up, I feel like the process is not in place to give the American people the amount of oversight that they need.
The way we do impeachment now is exactly the way it's supposed to work. They manipulated this process because we were only in what, day 78 of how the impeachment. We've never had impeachment during an election year. We've never had an impeachment be this short. Again, this is exactly the way it was supposed to work, and it is resulting in the way it should have ended. Is that there is no. President Trump will be acquitted, and that's it.
I understand that that's what's going to happen here, but I guess I still.
But does that not mean that it didn't work correctly?
I don't think it worked correctly, because I don't think that you would have all of the people involved that are around this, right? So your Joe Bidens, your Hunter Bidens, your Mitt Romney, your Nancy Pelosi, whose their kids sit on boards of foreign companies too. And so again, if you were to really drain the swamp and have a real open testimony about all of these things and call real witnesses and do all of that kind of stuff, again, I think it's unfair to the American people. I don't think it's a slight to Trump. I don't think that the Democratic talking point of that Republicans are covering for him or all of those things, I don't think that those are legitimate. I think that I look at the process as a whole, and I just don't think it's open enough for the entire country.
It's not meant to be open. It's meant to be a political theater, honestly, at the end of the day. And
it's not meant to be political theater.
I don't think it's supposed to be meant to be political theater.
No, it's not. It's meant to actually remove a president in the case that he's committed a crime.
The reason why it's so political is because the high crime and treason is to force the other party to capitulate and actually bring up the actual articles. The fact that we did not have a joint statement on both parties that made this decision means that this was done from the beginning.
No,
we've never had an impeachment process.
This was a political stunt, but at the end of the day, the process should be fair and transparent enough, to whether or not the articles were legitimate, that you could at least go through the process feeling that, like he didn't do anything wrong here. And the problem is that by not calling any witnesses, you're basically, I think you're tampering or you're smearing the validity of making the point that There was nothing there to begin with.
The fact that the articles that they have filed have no criminal attachment to it means that this was always going to be nothing.
Yeah, and
the Democrats are the ones that ruined the impeachment process.
I think
completely.
I think that it's shared blame. And again, I think
it's not shared blame. I really don't believe it's
because
shared
I
blame
think
at all.
again, I'm going to say it again. I think that if you would have an open, transparent trial, like whatever you want to call it,
this isn't a trial.
I know, but I'm saying that if you would actually have open testimony, I think you'd see a lot of that swamp draining that we talk about all the time. You have all of these people in positions where their kids are on all of these boards and everything like that, and then you have all these people that knew all of these things. Joe Biden talked about removing. I mean, the thing that Trump is impeached for.
It's illegal for letting your kids get on these boards. It's not illegal.
If you're in control of that jurisdiction,
it's not illegal.
It's a conflict of interest.
It's nepotism, but it's not illegal.
But it is a conflict of interest
because there was
and in this case,
we can add laws. We can add laws to say that it's not allowed.
Nobody's saying that it's illegal, but again, you can't say that there wasn't a conflict of interest.
You can't have a trial. If we're not saying that it's illegal, then you can have a trial.
I just think that everybody involved with this, like, it's something that Washington did not want out in the public any more than what was allowed, and it was very, very calculated on who was allowed to talk, who wasn't allowed to talk. I think Democrats are thrilled that witnesses were not called, to be honest, because I think that those witnesses would have taken down a lot of Democrats, including their leading, the person that we're predicting to win Iowa. I think he would go down.
But who votes for the witnesses? The Senate.
I think that everybody.
Who votes for the witnesses?
The House could have called them.
They were called.
I'm saying
actual politicians are contributing to the manipulation of what is supposed to be a fair trial. It's never going to be fair because it was always supposed to be political. You're supposed to force the opposite party to force them to vote against the president or whoever is being impeached because it's such a high crime of treason.
I agree with what Jake was saying.
It's not just for treason.
It's high crimes and treason. Like literally, it has to be so outrageous, breaking into your opponent's campaign headquarters and lying under oath in front of America. Those are the last two that we did.
All right.
Man, I think Jake was saying that a lot of people in Washington are relieved that no one was testifying because everyone gets exposed.
I don't disagree. I apologize. I don't disagree, Jake, of what you're saying, but this is the world.
Done end conversation.
I know this is the world that we live in, and I don't live in a fantasy. I live in reality, and this is the reality that we live in.
I think that we could have a more transparent process.
You're not going to call it impeachment.
What?
You're not going to call it an impeachment.
I think that the impeachment process can be. I think that there are rules that the American people could push for more transparency in an impeachment process going forward.
It's just like the filibuster. No, it's just like the filibuster rule. You can pass rules to fix the process.
Yeah, exactly.
In the middle of the process.
Not in the middle of the process. I'm talking about afterwards.
Not in the middle of the process.
We do not move goalposts.
But that's how it's done. In the impeachment trial, it is voted upon in the Senate during the impeachment trial.
I know how it works.
They can't even have caffeine. Do you understand that? They can have milk and water.
Yeah,
and
Romney
got
had
smacked
his
because of chocolate milk.
But that's just that's just antiquated law, and it was probably to prevent them from bringing beer into the
exactly.
But if they can't even make those changes now, there's no way we're going to have a change anytime soon. Again, it is meant to humiliate the party that's in power, that has the president, to force them to actually make the change and kick him out because it's supposed to be of high crimes and treason. This was not either of them.
Go ahead, Chris.
I disagree.
Okay.
Do you think the chocolate milk is why Romney lost his seat at Cpac?
I think Romney lost his seat at Cpac for a lot of reasons.
It was absolutely the chocolate milk.
I think it's.
By the way, look, I would totally be the chocolate milk guy. Like if I were in the Senate, that would totally be me.
Yeah, but you're smart enough not to drink it out of a clear glass.
By the way, he had to go get his clear glass actually, and I think he was allowed to have it then.
Well, again, because of the rules, right? But but it said milk. And so they're saying that because it was chocolate milk, that's how somehow violating the rules.
It's just, one thing I'll say about Romney,
which is incredibly racist against chocolate milk.
By the way, best non-alcoholic drink out there is chocolate milk. So I understand where Romney's coming from.
Whoa. Let's not have this debate now.
I think.
Do you know
this is petty foggery
really well?
I said best non-alcoholic drink is chocolate milk. I don't think it's up for debate.
That's not true.
All right, let's go ahead and bring
comments, guys. Name another in the comments.
Because we're about to take a hard turn here after that hefty conversation.
Oh, wow.
Coronavirus. I think we could all use a corona right about now, especially after that last topic.
Has their stock fallen?
Okay. Everyone's stock fell over the weekend.
No, but I don't think it's affected them.
Up 200 today.
Yeah, the Dow, not the Shanghai exchange.
Well, so of course the coronavirus, you've got your anti-vaxxers out there saying that this is all conjured up and just a way to vaccinate everybody. And then, of course, you've got the World Health Organization basically running around like chickens with their heads cut off. The UK apparently has lost a whole bunch of people who were in China, and now there's, I think, over 24 cases in the UK. I think there's now, I think we're in the single digits here in the United States.
We're at 12.
Is it 12?
It's 12. You reverse them.
Oh, okay. All right. So, needless to say, people want to equate it to Zika. You were talking about Zika earlier before we started the show. Is this a huge deal, or is this just kind of the panic of the quarter?
I think that it is a big deal. You have a lot of people in close quarters in that country, right? And you've got they can trace it back to
in that country, but I mean here, is it going to be a big problem here?
I don't think people should not be getting down to their bunkers and preparing a bunch of food to survive the next apocalypse. I don't think that it's going to get bad. It's not going to get bad here. But in a city like Wuhan, where you have millions of people around open livestock and kind of these open air markets, which is where this all originated from.
Eating bat soup
or whatever it is where this comes from. The Chinese government, what you should be scared of is that they've quarantined a city, right? That's what you should be afraid of. They have taken this virus and said, we have it under control, rest of the world. They do not have it under control. And then now it's gotten so bad that you've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people dying in these cities because they've now quarantined them and basically said, if we have to lose the city of Wuhan with 1 million people because it'll save, our billion-person population, they've quarantined. There are pictures of
which
them.
is totally a Chinese thing. They would absolutely do something like that.
Let's rewind a little bit. Do I think that we should be in bunkers? No. Do I think this can become some of the U.S. medical industry is actually calling this into a pandemic of a problem. What's occurring now? And remember, we talked about this last week. So last week it was less than 100 people had passed away. Last week it was less than 2,000 people infected.
They're lying about all their numbers.
I'm completely agreeing with you that they're going to be lying. But the thing is, though, what's scary are the numbers that they're giving out now. Plus 300 have already died. There are already cases of people outside of China that have passed away also. I think in the Philippines or in somewhere in Southeast Asia. It's now went from 2,000 infected to almost 17,000 infected. And so the number of quarantines over 100 million that are in their homes and they can't move around.
Well, and I think that this speaks to a bigger problem here, right? Because they've had this problem with SARS, right? And like the real issue here is that you have a bunch of hospitals and people in the communist government that they have that do not want to report that their city is not under control. They do not want to get punished from Beijing and have it come down to them and say, well, what were you guys doing? Because now you're fired or killed or something like that. Because that's genuinely what has happened here. People in the hospitals do not want to be blamed. Doctors do not want to be blamed. And they are underreporting all the way through because they don't want to get in trouble from the people at the top in this dynasty.
That's exactly how socialized anything works.
Exactly. And so that's what we're seeing here. So what should be scary to Americans, not so much that it's going to come over here because, yes, we're going to have 5 or 10 cases from people who accidentally visited Wuhan at the wrong time. And they weren't treated properly because they kept saying that this wasn't a real virus, it's just pneumonia or whatever, right? So that's going to happen. But a giant pandemic, no, but what should be scary here is that socialized medicine, socialized country, communist country, right? They can just decide all of a sudden that your city is quarantined and it's now quarantined, and then now there are dump trucks of mud now blocking out all of the tunnels getting out of Wuhan. That is a real thing. They have quarantined that city. So what should be scary is that the government has been able to go and basically stop people from mobilizing and getting them out of a country. They basically, again, written off an entire city of millions of people and said, go stay in your homes, be safe, but you're not infecting the rest of our country. And that should be what's scary to everybody.
I think any government would do almost the exact same thing if
they
had. Yes, they would.
You think that what would happen if Washington, D.C. said, Tampa is quarantined. We are closing all of the bridges. You guys are stuck there because you guys have a disease going on.
If there was a disease going on, I think the military would go into Tampa to try to stop
and close the bridges.
Have you seen any movies lately?
I know.
The movies, yes, exactly.
That's
what happens in the movies.
But that's what would happen. They would close it down.
I don't think in an American city you would see this until you have a socialized medicine or like got this federalist government that comes in.
I think any government would do the same thing to ensure the safety of. You want the pandemic to go through the United States just to allow it, so then you can what?
I think you'd have a major revolt. I think
it'd
you'd.
be-
I don't think you would have
I think
to make a
if
revolt.
you would know, people would panic here in this country. I think they would panic
Yeah.
if they found themselves blocked into an area. And then, mind you, again, it's much more difficult to do that here simply because
much
of
more.
land
You
mass.
could quarantine Tampa
But-
in a second.
No, you
Not
could
Tampa, St.
No, you
Pete.
could- yeah,
St.
St.
Pete,
Pete.
yeah.
in a
Pinellas,
second.
you
Exactly.
could absolutely lock
Oh.
down real quick.
Pinellas will turn into 2 islands if it ever gets hit by a hurricane. So let's all understand what we're talking
Or
about.
Florida, right? Like you could quarantine Florida. There's like two intersections that go out of
There
Florida,
are
right?
2 intersections that come out
you
of
have
Florida.
you have 75.
Let's go through this now.
You got
This is the attitude I got with the 4 and 8 thing.
there can't be. I
How
can't,
many ways to get out of Florida? Leave your
Go-
comments
look,
downstairs.
I can tell you right now. Go remember that hurricane that we had when everyone's trying to leave. There are 2 interstates to get people out of this state.
True.
And if they were to
Yeah, there are
quarantine
2
those 2
interstates,
interstates,
yes.
and if they were to quarantine those interstates and close them off, what would we do? We'd be stuck in
No,
Florida. And I don't think
I would change my Google Waze
And you
to
don't-
get
there's
off
like-
of the highway and switch
there's
onto
like-
State Road 301.
and
So
there's
like
like a
there are
few
other
roads.
ways.
But how-
A1, A1.
And you don't think that the military
Yeah,
could
but-
easily close off all of those roads,
I'm
the
not-
10 roads?
Oh,
now
guaranteed
we
they
got
could
to
do it.
No, I
defend-
think
they
the
could do
Florida National Guard could absolutely do it.
Of
Okay,
course.
thank you guys. I have to argue against Anibal every week about things that I think are obvious, and everyone
We
else on the
went
show
from
thinks
2
they're obvious.
intersections.
Mind
to
you,
get through
this
Florida.
whole lockdown premise
And then
was his
2
idea in the
interstates.
first place.
Why is it my
Anibal was the
idea?
one pitching this whole thing that they were going to lock.
First of all,
that
I
they
knew
were
for a
going
fact
to lock
China
down
was going to
Tampa.
knock
and-
down, was going to lock down Wuhan.
I can't even believe we haven't even made it to the thing you're most wrong about yet, and we've already gone this far
Oh,
into the
sir,
show.
I have receipts for that one. Also,
Yeah, this is not going to be Anibal's best show.
no,
I'll
it's
tell you
not.
that.
We're gonna change. We got to get our tally board. We got to get up there. We need a scoreboard.
I mean,
Well,
yeah, we do. When it comes
Those
to
at home, you can
euros.
you can keep one for us.
Yeah, we need somebody who's going to start taking score for us.
Again, I think what's happening now, and I'm more focused on the economic backlash when it comes to what happened today. The Chinese stock exchange, the Shanghai stock exchange opened up. It went down 10% opening. The Chinese government tried to pump in almost 170 billion
Look,
US dollars.
hit the brakes, though. Hit the brakes, though. Are those numbers even real to begin
Well,
with?
yes, it's an actual
No, those
exchange
numbers,
that-
they're fluffing those numbers to
I
begin
just
with.
told you how much they pumped in. They were only planning to pump in $20 billion. And at the end of the day, they had to pump in 170. The reason why we know this is because it's actually open exchange market that you can see who is dumping money in, and you automatically assume it's the Chinese government. So they tried their best, and they lost about almost $500 billion in valuation.
I guess my take on it is that, again, if I had to bullet point it, don't go to your bunkers. It's not going to be a pandemic. It's not going to be a pandemic in America. You're fine.
It could be. I don't think
but
you should
be scared if you're in China because
you shouldn't be that cavalierish about something that's actually legitimate. Because again, we're still in flu season for the next few months.
it's pneumonia. Like I mean, like
Do you know what the percentage?
I'll tell you, this
wait,
is
wait. Let's have this conversation.
This
Do
is
you
a
know
great
what the
test run for the anti-vaxxers.
Do you know what the
though.
percentage is of conversion from having a case to death?
for the virus. How can you possibly know those numbers when they can't even report how many people are
Of
in these
the
places?
cases that we have now, there is a way to calculate that
Because
percentage.
the only cases we have are the worst of
Do
the
you know
worst.
the
I don't think
numbers?
it's anywhere
Please
near
fill us in,
accurate.
Anibal.
Do you know the number?
Oh my
There's
God.
no reason for numbers.
3% of conversion.
That's
from
nothing. I'm
How-
a betting man. I'll take
Okay.
97% all day.
Okay, so what's the conversion of death when it comes to having the flu?
I mean, I have no clue because I'm not prepared to
Point-
give you that
point
kind of
five.
stat.
Point five.
Shocking that he doesn't have a clue. 'Cause he
I'm
wasn't
still
prepared.
right on all of my
What's
points.
The
I don't
no,
need
you're
numbers.
not.
He's going off the
What
talking
is-
points that we had in our little chat group. All right, which
No,
is
I'm
basically
not.
that
Exactly.
the flu is far more fatal in this country than the coronavirus
That's
will probably
no.
ever
Whoa,
be.
whoa. That's not true. The percentage of people that die when they get the flu is 0.095%.
Those numbers are fluffed by
You
the
know
CDC.
why? You know why? It's because the amount of it's all fake news to you, isn't it?
I do not
You're
believe...
gonna say that the CDC is lying to the U.S. government of how many people get the flu and how many people die?
I absolutely
Hey,
think
the
that...
intelligence agencies were doing it. The
I-
FBI's been doing it.
I think that every
We're getting in the
number...
weeds.
The CIA's been doing it.
I think
right
that-
now, the coronavirus has a higher percentage of people that contract the disease and pass away because of the disease than the flu.
But it at the end of the day, we are looking at like different strands of flu, right? Basically, because again, you get pneumonia type viruses.
What's
and then,
the name?
Jake,
of
look,
the-
don't bother. He just wanted.
I shouldn't-
Look,
I
Jake,
shouldn't
don't
bother.
even bother. because
shouldn't bother.
He
We're
just
done.
wanted. He just wanted to throw out that little
No,
footnote.
you make the comment.
that
you
little
make
stat.
the comment that the flu
Okay.
is more deadlier, and
I
what
didn't
I
say
want to
it's
say
deadlier.
is
I didn't say it's deadlier.
that percentagely, if you get the coronavirus, there's a higher likelihood of you passing away from it than the flu.
Yeah, but that's because they have spent no time trying to fix the problem.
You you know how long it takes to be able to develop some kind of antivirus?
This has probably been festering for months, but they are not labeling it as a coronavirus or whatever they call it in China. They have not been labeling it as such, and because they've lied about their numbers for months, it allows a pandemic to happen.
Okay,
that's what happens.
So much more interesting question: is this Darwinism at work? Is this natural selection? Is this a way of thinning the herd?
The Black Plague.
I don't want to talk about this.
Speaking of conspiracy theories about people lying to people.
Oh, whoa, yeah.
There was a theory that this was a biological weapon developed by the Chinese government that went horribly wrong and got out of its coop.
I think that conspiracy theories are fun, and I will entertain all of them. But I cannot sit on a show and say this is what happened, right? Like I can say it's fun to think fun, but like I think there's credence. I think there's
talking about millions of people getting infected.
I think that there is credence to saying a government is experimenting on different viruses or things like that on their own population. I mean, we've done it in America. It's widely documented and declassified at this point.
This isn't the first time the Chinese have done this to their own population.
Like if we've done it to our own population, they are absolutely doing it to their own population.
Good book. Straight up like dropping atom bombs like 45 minutes away from Vegas.
Yeah.
Unit 731 about the Japanese government in World War II describes the government using biological weapons on their people in great detail. It's a pretty solid read.
Good job, Chris. About that. That's a good one.
Chris wants you to read books. We just want you to watch video clips. Just watch the clip of Michael Moore screaming. That's all we're asking you. Chris wants you to read books.
I thought he was going to have a heart attack on screen because you could see the Krispy Kreme coming out of his throat. I was like, oh my God, he's going to start.
Chris VerKuilen, the radical. Wanted to read books and stuff. Oh my God.
That's
get out
horrible.
of here with that nonsense.
Anyways,
Let's move on.
I think we'll be fine in the United States. I think the CDC and the military is doing a great job controlling it and making sure people are actually. And the other weird thing about this virus is that it can be passed even when you don't have the symptoms, and that's a crazy one. Whereas in the flu, you can only pass it after you've started showing that you have a high fever and cough and everything else. So that's why this is a little bit tricky.
Well, you know what's even crazier? Is that we're still talking about it.
I know.
Yeah,
that's even crazy.
It's crazy.
Because if you would have taken my bullet points, we could have moved on. But no,
you didn't provide bullet points.
I provided bullet points.
You walked in here 2 minutes before we started.
My bullet points on the show, not before the show.
All right, boys, you're off camera.
I did it. Go ahead, continue.
All right, recap here on the topic list. Again, just getting out of the coronavirus. Thank you so much for the science lesson, Anibal. Now we're going to do a quick jog over to the UK. Again, we've got some mixed opinions. I think, while we've gotten word from some somewhat legit sources that right now, Brits, while they were celebrating in mass quantities out in the streets when this went into effect, they're saying, well, this is going to still take a lot of months of negotiation between the other countries, et cetera, et cetera. My point, and the reason I wanted to bring it up was, is this basically a litmus test for our upcoming election? I mean, this was a huge win for the Conservative Party, something that, again, had been in limbo for a long time. All of a sudden, Boris Johnson gets reelected and pushes Brexit through and gets it done. I mean, is this pretty much an indicator that Trump is going into reelection?
As far as Trump goes, I think Brexit is more important for Britain than it is for the U.S.
For us it's symbolic, right? Like for us it's not, and I mean it like in the sense that do we continue to see, because we saw a conservative wave happen in other parts of the world after Trump got elected. We saw it happen in the UK. We saw it happen in Brazil. We saw it happen in other countries. Does this mean that the conservative wave that we have right now, does it continue through to our November elections? Because this is a big deal. This is a huge win for conservatives in the UK.
I think it is. Stop trying to make fetch a thing.
It's not a thing.
It seems contagious, conservative wave.
I love it. What I will say, what you should take away from Brexit is that you had every liberal media source for a year or two say that this could not be done. This is not something that we could figure out. And they poor Boris Johnson, who looks like he's disheveled, but he's not disheveled. He knows what he's doing. He does. He plays.
I love that conversation.
He plays a disheveled person on TV. He's not. He's
apparently it's all an act.
It is complete an act. He's from Oxford.
He's very
he can
smart.
do his hair. He has a comb. So the point is that they were able to do it, and all the things that because I don't pay too much attention to the British tabloids like by any means, but when I do catch it on like the New York Times will do something about it, NPR will do a piece on it or something like that. I catch it and I catch the language and the way that it's talked about, and the way that it's talked about is that Boris Johnson's basically Trump. He's a terrible person. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's done all of these different things to strong arm Parliament into doing all these different things that he wants, and he was able to effectively negotiate an exit deal after two people failed in front of him.
Yep.
Correct.
And so that is what you should take away from this, is that, as much as liberal media says that, oh, Trump doesn't know what he's doing, Boris Johnson doesn't know what he's doing, they kind of know what they're doing.
Not just any two people. The guy who started this whole thing, Nigel Farage, right? Even he couldn't get it done. Like, he started this whole Brexit thing, and he wasn't even able to get it done. He wasn't even able to get reelected.
Well, I think that's the joke at the end of the day of how Boris Johnson has really done a great job being able to go in the background and be able to negotiate this out with people thinking that he was just a joke and actually being a really good tacticianer. So I think this is, yes, it's important for us to be able to talk about Brexit and be able to talk about how it's supposed to be some form of point that the conservatives here can actually talk about in regards to seeing a liberal media waste the time of so much time and then they just get it done.
They should have spent more time on Megxit.
Oh, God.
So as far as conservatism broadly regarding Brexit, I think it's great the Britons can now govern themselves as opposed to having diplomats in Brussels decide things for them. As conservatives, we like to have our government local and small, and this is a step in that direction for the Britons. I'm very proud of them getting it done.
I think so, and if they were to have a deadly virus breakout, now they don't have Brussels being able to quarantine the entire island.
We've seen what happens when the UK gets a deadly disease. We all seen the movie.
Yeah.
So because of that, I think they will be fine. Nothing's going to go crazy. I will want to see what the hash out is going to be when it comes to trade, and that's just because I'm a nerd.
There's a lot that still has to be hashed out. I don't think it's perfect yet, but again, they'll work on that, and we'll like use it in your little corner in Anibal's attic like 4 months down the road when they have some.
You're being very generous.
When they have some sort of like mildly interesting thing going on. But right now, I think again, like you said, good for them. At least they got this done. This is what the people voted for, and I think we can move on to the more important topics.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and do that then. Again, a little bit of controversy here. It's going to be our local topic of the day. We had a city council member using an inappropriate slur towards a certain minority group here in... I did now. I looked it up. I promise. I hear you, but don't forget, you are in front of a microphone. So city council member Orlando Gudes, sure, why not? Apparently used the word Jude to like Jude up. I think they were talking about some contract negotiations.
Yeah, I'll brief people.
Yes, please.
Yes,
our official Jewish correspondent.
I've actually somehow become the official. I no, seriously, I feel like I've actually become the official Jewish correspondent on this story.
So the city of Tampa, you've basically become that guy.
Somehow, I mean, it's basically the story is we've got issues with his district and contracts, and when the Tampa Bay Times asked him about it in official business, he said we're getting Jude out of contract money, right? It's in his official transcript, right? And then they wrote an article about it, and they said he used anti-Semitic language and all of that kind of thing. Then what's been more interesting to me since this has started was the Tampa Bay Times wrote an article about it. And then, if you were to just read the comments on said article, you would see that a bunch of other Democrats on city council, other Democrats that are actively involved in the community, and other Democrats just around the area are defending him, right? And
it's a shame.
And I don't... This is what I said on the same thread, is basically... I don't care that he used this language, right? I think that, it's wrong. He probably needs a conversation that I would please come on the show. I wasn't able to get in touch with him over the weekend. I know he's getting bombarded with different requests. But what I would say about it is that it's bad. It's not appropriate especially in an official context, right? Like to talk about, your government contracts in such a way, it's not appropriate. But I'm not up in arms about this, and I cannot stress that enough. Like, I'm not upset about that, and my point is that, like, I'm Jewish. I've been on government contracts. I'm in the city of Tampa. I could be as offended as anybody about this. I'm not. Like, but my point is that I find it amazing that the same people who, and this isn't anybody specific, but Democrats in general, the same people who will look at Ron DeSantis and say his monkey it up comment was racist. He's definitely racist for that. This comment that, whatever, put X into the blank space of Republicans saying this, and they're a racist for it, and they're an anti-Semite for it, and all of that. Hold the same standards to your elected officials. Expect, and there's definitely an element here that he's black. He's in a black district, and I think there is a double standard here on the way that he's being held to it versus the way that Democrats hold Republicans to it. And so, I'm by no means calling for his resignation or anything like that. I'd love to have a conversation with him and talk with him about it. But Democrats should realize that if you guys aren't going to remove him from office or call for his removal or condemn him for this, then you shouldn't be condemning anybody on the Republican side either. And that's where we're at. And again, it's nobody in particular. Luis Vieira, who's been a friend of the show and a friend of the Tampa Young Republicans, he publicly came out and condemned it because he said, I say the same thing about Trump. I should say the same thing about Orlando's comments, basically.
I was very proud of Lewis being able to write that and make that comment.
Yeah.
And I was very disheartened to see so many others from council and elected officials not holding him to the same caliber that they would hold others in government.
I just look at it like, so I'm the head of the Tampa Young Republicans, right?
What?
If I use the N-word, if I use the R-word, if I use any sort of defamatory type language, there would be a group of Democrats the next day lined up with Tampa Bay Times and Creative Loafing. Screw Creative Loafing, by the way. Those people would all be writing articles about how I should resign and how I'm anti-Semitic or I'm racist or something like that. And it's like, so I applaud the Tampa Bay Times for writing this article. Right?
Yeah, if they only knew what you said about Anibal,
I know. You'd be surprised what's said in the background.
There's nothing said in the background.
That is not true.
I think that but if they were to hold, they would very much hold our group or any Republican elected officials. They'd be calling for their resignation right now, right? Could you imagine if like a Stacey White had said this as he's going through this whole thing? I mean, there would be
protests daily.
Yeah,
there would be daily protests at the Hillsborough County building.
Yeah,
but we've made this comment before that Republicans have to hold no matter what, we're going to be held to a higher standard because Democrats are more than willing to take out us.
And this would have turned into a national story. I can guarantee you. Had a Republican said it, they would have gotten a quote from every single elected official from here all the way up to the White House.
Yeah.
And they would expect the governor and everybody on down to be calling for his removal, and that's the double standard. And again, we're not calling for that. We're not looking for that type of retribution.
Yeah, and that's really all I wanted to point out. Yeah. Like in any of my comments and any of my conversations with anybody else on city council has been, I'm not calling for anyone's resignation over this. I'm calling for if you're going to this is very much the analogy I use. Keep your goalposts still and don't be hypocrites about it, right? Like so, whenever the inevitably next thing that you guys get outraged about from the Republican side, remember this instance, right? And hold yourselves to the same standards because again. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I don't think he deserves to be canceled for this. I think that it's a conversation, right? Like the term Jude, I've talked to so many people who have no clue that this is like even referring to Jews, right? Like there's so many people. I totally like you laugh, but there's so many people that use it in day-to-day conversation, and they're not even aware of it. So again, I'm happy. To have a
they don't know the origin
of
the term.
Yeah, I'm happy to have a conversation with him about it. I'm happy to have him on the show so that he can come on and give his side of the story. Again, I'm not mad at him. I just think that again, hold yourselves to the same standard you would hold us.
It was an interesting article. I bravo to the newspaper writing it. I will say I was a little bit disappointed with him making remarks about how I don't think he fully apologized.
He
didn't apologize.
The first time he didn't.
Yeah, and that was my biggest concern, that he didn't see it as unnecessary for it to be an apology. And if that was your first response, then you really don't think of the word as being as inappropriate as it was.
But again, he gave a very half-hearted, almost obligatory apology. And then it wasn't until the fire really started burning and people still really started getting into his ear that then he put out an official statement with a much more thorough apology. And and I'm not saying that he doesn't mean it. It doesn't. At this point, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you're right. To Jake's point, part of it's education. Part of it is again, it's a terminology that's been in certain communities for a long time. And I'm willing to give him benefit of the doubt. That being said, I think his initial apology should have been much more legitimate, much more heartfelt, I guess, if you will.
And no one's trying to do the cancel culture.
That's the thing.
That's not happening here. Nor has it been of any Republicans I've heard of.
No. That's the difference that you want to talk about is that no Republicans are looking at him and going, "You need to resign." I'm only saying, hold each other to the same standards on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
That's all.
To further what Johnny said, I think that we can always assign motive, but I think that we should start from ignorance and move to malice after we have reason to believe somebody has malicious intent with use of these kind of words. I think his half-hearted first apology maybe lends itself to maybe malice being possible.
Correct.
But we still can't get there yet. But to further your point, cancel culture is awful. We don't need to have that in our modern discourse.
Yeah, and he's doing fine. He's a hardworking city councilman. He's doing fine. I think that again, you don't remove people from office or ask for their removal unless there's something egregious here. And again, like you said, unless there's
high crimes or treason.
Let's not get into this. I think we can move on though, because again, Orlando, if it gets to you, I'm happy to have you on the show so we can have a conversation.
Yeah, we would love that. He's been doing really good to the community, and I don't like what happened here, and I think it can be easily rectified if he is able to elaborate more. But yeah, I totally agree. Would love to have him on the show.
And we apologize for misspelling your name. It's Johnny's fault.
It's so Johnny's
I
fault.
fixed it.
Yeah, but that still means you had it wrong.
All right. Well, again, I'm trying my best here.
We want to apologize to you in person, Orlando.
That doesn't sound intimidating at all.
Yeah.
No, it was genuine.
Yeah. All right.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's go ahead. We'll bring up the topic list one more time. But again, our obvious last topic of the night is going to be the Super Bowl. Plenty to digest here. Plenty to pick apart. So let's start at the beginning. It's something that I saw TMZ running with this, and again, TMZ just loves to start mess. For lack of the better term in that situation. They love starting trouble, man, because they know that it drives traffic, it drives viewers. I mean, Harvey Levin is a brilliant guy. And so the first controversy in this situation is Beyonce and Jay-Z not standing for the national anthem. Obviously, they've been very supportive. So non-issue.
They're private citizens that are watching a game. They have they're not being paid to play a game. So that doesn't matter. I don't care.
What I want to say about this,
yeah, but intentional or not? I mean,
intentional, absolutely. It's extremely intentional. I mean, but again, I think that the NFL does not want to bring this stuff up anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I kept seeing pop up here and there was, the NFL wouldn't show this, pro-life video, or, the NFL wouldn't show this video or from this organization or something like that during their commercials. And then, this kind of thing, it's look, the NFL is trying so hard to move past that. We had an amazing Super Bowl. The game was amazing.
Game was great.
They shouldn't have even flashed to them on the screen sitting through it, or even written about it. I mean, because they're just sitting they're 1 and 2 of 60,000 people in those stands. I don't want to talk about it because it's
it's a waste. It's giving,
move on to the good stuff.
It's giving exactly. It's giving credence to something that does not matter. There's so many other people that were there of high celebrities and politicians that were there that it shouldn't have mattered, and that's the reason. The fact that there was a camera on.
But that's what I'm saying. TMZ.
Someone thought it was going to be.
They knew.
Of course,
I think because again they've been very big supporters.
I don't want to.
I don't want to give it any more.
No, and you're right. I mean, again, even I was rolling my eyes when I saw TMZ post it, and of course now since then other outlets are starting to make hay about it, and honestly, I think it's a non-issue. It's a non-story. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of other people in the crowd, probably for very non-political reasons that also didn't stand up for the anthem. But anyways, as far as the game goes, it goes back to kind of why I'm such a casual sports fan. I mean, all the best stuff happened in the fourth quarter. It was an amazing game, and I was pulling for the Chiefs, and because I think Mahomes is going to be a superstar. But was it a great game? I think again, fourth quarter amazing. The rest of the game was kind of eh.
So I'm This is the only topic I'm fully prepared for. Just so you guys know. As far
Out
as
of months.
Well, it goes back to us talking about the fact that you basically just got back from Miami right before the show.
Full disclosure here. Like I was in Miami all weekend. I had a great time. The Super Bowl was fantastic from start to finish. I didn't actually go to the game, though, by the way.
Didn't invite us either, but that's okay.
That's okay, yeah. The point is that I went down there because the city of Miami, number one, fantastic job.
Yes,
like
I agree.
Absolutely, start to finish.
Great.
I think people are going to look back at the Super Bowl and the environment that they were able to create from the week leading up to it, to the game, to after the game, all of that stuff. They put on a great Super Bowl. Everyone was happy. Everyone was thrilled. The place was bumping all week, by the way. Then the next thing I want to say is that to go to the actual game part of this, I don't talk too much about like my actual business side of things, but like I do a lot of work alongside of Patrick Mahomes' agent Lee Steinberg and Steinberg Sports, and they have a comeback story at this point that's now better than the comeback story that happened
Completely.
in this. And
He's the comeback king. This is his third comeback in a row in the postseason of all things, and to do it in the Super Bowl again is just unbelievable. And then him being youngest MVP, all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
and these guys, it couldn't happen to a better person,
Correct.
a better family, and again a better agency. I mean, like I've talked about this before. The amount of influence and jobs created underneath of somebody like this, the amount of influence it has on the league as a whole, the politics of it. I mean, again, like I looked at the story on Yahoo. The main story on Yahoo was like Patrick Mahomes and his girlfriend kissing like high school sweetheart after the game. Guy's a superstar, by the way, Johnny. Not going to be a superstar, like is a superstar.
No, this just certified it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the Super Bowl just certified it.
And again, a great person, great family, great agency. When he gets paid this summer, by the way, he's going to shatter all records. I mean, probably looking at like $40 million a year, 7-year contract kind of thing.
Does he stay in Kansas City?
Yes.
Not even close to being like they've been working on locking him down since game one of him coming out and being a superstar. So at this point, he's now going to command a bigger contract than anyone's ever seen in NFL history. And again, the other thing you're going to see is the agency that represents him as well just explode because of the fact that this deal is going to get done.
There was a lot of things to like about him. There was a lot of things. His backstory is amazing.
Yeah.
He's been a kid that has kept his not to say anything, but to kept his nose under. Like he's not gotten into huge trouble.
No, not at all.
They have a picture of him with the others praying before it started the Super Bowl. So he has been doing a good job keeping himself clean, making sure everything is legitimate.
So you're saying there's no crab leg pictures?
There's no crab leg pictures.
So, but that's what it takes now. Not to have that kind of stuff.
Yeah, he
derail
he deserves every piece of praise you possibly can get him. The comeback in the fourth quarter was phenomenal. I mean, I think that
I saw a grown man cry because of that.
I didn't see anybody cry on Ocean Drive down there. They were
all inebriated,
a little bit of a different vibe going on down there, which I want to talk about because one of the biggest things that I gathered from my experience over Super Bowl weekend, because the biggest controversy that it seems like there is over Shakira and over J-Lo. Right in the halftime show.
Right.
As much as
Here we
as
go.
much as I care about the game,
about.
I care about the game. I care about the NFL. I care about this stuff. But 90% of not 90%. Let's say like 40%.
I would say a good 50, 60% of people are trying to say why they're upset with the halftime show.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people are saying that.
I want to know why Anibal's upset with the
I want to
halftime
know
show.
why
I thought it was a great
Anibal
halftime
is
show.
upset with the
Shakira.
Who said anything?
Why are
about
you
me
hating
being
on
upset
Shakira,
of-
bro?
Who said anything about me being upset?
I think
of
we
You
have
were
to-
no.
Johnny, do we have
Let's
the
be
receipts?
specific.
Yes, let's have the receipts.
Let's be specific.
If you ask me who did a better
You
job
were hating
in
on
their
Shakira.
performance, I would go J-Lo did a better job over Shakira.
This is
That's
the
what I
reason
would
why.
say.
Okay, should we kind of
We
deconstruct
also don't
it?
have any sound.
No.
Should we deconstruct it from the beginning?
I mean,
okay. First of all, Shakira played the guitar.
Not a biased. It's so biased.
So are you.
Because what? I'm
Why
Puerto
aren't you
Rican.
prepared?
Am I Puerto Rican?
No, but you're from the water over there.
I'm
All those
from where?
Did you
racist.
all those island countries. You're from one of those island
If I said
countries.
that?
Yeah, that's I'm offended. Somebody needs to cancel Johnny.
So I guess the point is that people like Anibal were hating on Shakira
Yes.
right after the performance.
Mind
And
you, okay, both of
I
them
was very
amazing.
bored
both-
with Shakira's performance.
Both of them
that
amazing
is what you're wrong
dancers.
about.
I was bored.
J-Lo did not play the guitar.
You are
J-Lo did not play the drums. Okay.
First of all,
and all she
neither
did,
did Shakira.
all she did was get up on the Festivus
you
pole
really believe
and put on a, you know, and
Do you
meanwhile she didn't even
believe
really
that
do the pole
guitar
thing.
was live? Do you really believe the drums were live?
Oh, yeah.
Her mic wasn't even on, and so she threw herself into the crowd.
They all
It
used
was
and
real.
tracks.
started doing the goat flap.
Anibal,
with
let
her
me
They all
tongue.
use
me
tracks.
tell you-
Look, they all use tracks.
I'm not
Historically,
denying that. I'm not
his-
denying that whatsoever, but you can see that there's a true difference when it comes to the mic. The mic was not even on until 3 minutes into her performance.
J-Lo can't even sing. She's not even that
no
great a
one has
singer.
said any of that.
Guys,
J-Lo is a great performer, and so was Shakira.
Let me explain to you how the Hispanic community took this. Because
Yes,
since
I
you
would
guys
love, I
clearly
would
have
love
no
to
idea,
hear
by the way.
what the Jewish
let me-
Anglo-Saxon gentleman wants to know about the
let me tell you-
Latino community.
Let me
I'm
tell you something.
intrigued.
I am going to tell you because Ocean
Yes,
Drive
please, let me.
was this had nobody cared about the game. I'm going to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
because they were high on cocaine.
I am
This
not
is
going-
Ocean Drive.
I am not going
It
to
is the
deny-
most European part of the United States
First
of
off,
America.
there was no Europeans there that night.
That's
There
not
were-
true.
there- I can tell you.
They take my euros all the time when I'm in South Beach.
No, there-
Which tells you a
okay,
lot. By
so
the way.
I'm saying that if you were to gauge the community in Miami watching this out, like the block party that was happening,
South
the
Beach,
epicenter of South Beach,
which is not a.
it was the
which is-
local
not
community.
local
It was very much
There's
local community.
not- Jonathan, is South Beach local community?
Not
Negative.
Thank you.
on a regular weekend.
Thank
No.
you.
Okay, so here, let me explain to you what the Hispanic community cared
It's
about.
practically
Because
Sodom and Gomorrah.
It
every
is.
single
I'm
day.
not disagreeing
giving
with
him
any of those
kind of
points.
things.
I am not going to disagree with any of those points. But what
Well,
it
those
was,
people knew exactly what was going on. No, they're
What-
high and drunk at
what-
the same time.
and you know what? None of them cared
Let him
about
make
the
his
game.
point, Anibal.
Nobody cared about the game until the halftime show. And then when the halftime show came on and Shakira started playing her hits and J-Lo started playing their hits, the entire place is up dancing, singing. They're proud. They're waving the flags. Let
I
me show
did
you about
deny any of
the
this.
Colombian pride.
I did not deny
the
any of this.
Puerto
The Puerto
Rican
Rican
pride,
pride, yes.
all of those things.
I'm not
They were
saying that
loving
it
it,
was-
and
I'm
they
not
rocked
saying-
the
Anibal, let him
stage.
talk.
They rocked the stage, and they brought up the entire community that that is out there. And I don't know why I have to explain that to you, Anibal or Johnny. Johnny agrees with me, so I'm going to mostly go
No,
with
not
Anibal.
to me. I love the whole thing.
I
think
thought
the
it was
whole,
a great performance.
yeah,
but if you're asking
absolutely.
me who did better, I'm going to say J-Lo. I'm
Look-
sorry if I'm not allowed to have an opinion in a free country.
To me, the only
wrong.
minor issue I had with it were certain camera angles I felt were
That I thought was
were inappropriate. But in all, the performance, the choreography, I don't believe was. And again, if you don't know the culture, this
Correct.
again is very acceptable and very normal in the Latin culture. I mean, they did an amazing job, and I think they represented the Hispanic and Latin community well.
I think it's done very well.
And like, again, a lot of people don't know who the other two clowns were, but that's fine.
I still don't know who the other.
Yeah, so it's
dude
Bad
was.
Bunny and J Balvin,
Well,
and
they're both from
they're
Colombia, so
megastars.
it is what it is.
It
Well, no,
actually was
hold on.
Ali G.
Correction. No, so J Balvin's from Colombia, Bad Bunny's from Puerto Rico, both reggaeton stars, okay? But they're also massive in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
Not as mainstream, obviously, as Shakira and J-Lo, but those guys right now have done songs with both of them, as we saw last night,
Yeah.
and have continued to keep them relevant
Yeah, I think
as
that-
those guys are coming up.
I think that there was a little bit of complaint, I think, from the Miami community that some of their other artists were not represented.
Yeah.
in there.
And you heard that months ago.
but I
Yeah.
think
It
that
could have
that's-
gotten real hood up in there. I
It-
mean,
Look, let me tell you something.
Oh, yeah.
The mainstream is still not ready for Uncle Luke and Two Live Crew to do to do the halftime show. I'm all for it. I may or may
Trick
not
Daddy,
have been,
Trina.
I don't think it's ever going
I
to happen.
may or may not have attended any of Uncle Luke's parties over the weekend. They're undisclosed. But the point is that they represent the community down there, and they do deserve a place in the Miami culture. And you see other events that do get that. But again, this is the Super Bowl. This is mainstream.
It is the largest
and
viewed,
J-Lo and
event of the
Shakira are as mainstream as you get. And they did. I don't care about the halftime show almost ever because I like football. And this was the best halftime show I've seen in a long time.
Well, let me
is-
tell you
it is
this.
one of the best
So, and to back up what you're saying, Jake, I think if you go down to South Beach, and Anibal's right, South Beach is not true Miami.
Yeah.
But I think it is when it comes to the nightlife and the party and the lifestyle, there is that element to it. And what we saw in the Super Bowl is a watered down version of what you see on South Beach.
Correct.
That's absolutely what's happening. Yeah, exactly. And again, I thought it was a phenomenal halftime show. I think, was it the best? No. I'd say top 5, yes. I would say maybe even top 3, possibly.
And I think that if we want to talk about this from like a political standpoint, which is what this show actually is supposed to do, I know we spend a lot of time on gossip, but it's fun, is that the NFL, for all of the faults that it had maybe 2 years ago with the whole kneeling thing, that's why I don't want to talk about Jay-Z and Beyonce, for all of the controversy they've had over the past couple of years, we had an amazing halftime show, we had an amazing Super Bowl with great stories, with class acts. We won't talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and porn stars or anything like that, but the other quarterback, all of the other people that are that are taking place in the Super Bowl, we had nothing but great storylines. We had somebody that wasn't the Patriots in it. I mean, it was yeah, exactly. I mean, you can boo me all you want. I think that the country as a whole got to do what they wanted, which is watch a great game, see sports, get to see a halftime show they wanted, and I think that you had to bend over backwards to find controversy in this halftime show, and I don't think they did anything wrong.
I think
aside from the bending over backwards,
I think people are. I think people are trying to find something wrong with it. I don't think it's legitimate. Their concerns. They're talking about that it wasn't family friendly and everything. The kids were but at the end of the day, there was a lot less. There was less skin than you would have assumed in anything else. I think they were very tasteful.
Nobody's shirts were
yeah, I think they were very tasteful. And anyway,
I don't think it was any
the whole time.
I don't think it was any less tasteful than, again, I would compare it to Beyonce's performance.
Yeah.
Beyonce did an amazing job in the halftime show. She looked great. She went up there and shaked her ass. Yeah. I mean, again, like everybody had a great time, and we didn't see the outrage. And again, other than a few questionable camera shots, which again, that's not the fault of the performers. I think it's comparable to say that, again, Beyonce's performance very similar to what Shakira and J-Lo did last night.
I like hockey.
All right. On that note,
well, that was civil. I thought that was very civil.
Thank you so much to everybody for watching.
That's because you didn't use your real position.
You assumed I didn't like
I didn't
the
assume
performance.
anything. Everybody that's watching this show saw the same Facebook status that I did last night, and
I thought J-Lo did a better job than Shakira. I think that's my opinion.
And this is what happens. You've had to flip flop your original position.
How? I did not say anything. I did not say anything that is not true. I think J-Lo did a much better job than Shakira.
That part is not true. That part right there.
That part is not true.
Was there a little lull in Shakira's performance? Yes. No. There was a little bit of a lull where it was kind of like,
Do you want to play her lull?
When she was the goat, when she was basically the goat,
that's don't get me wrong. That's not a goat. That's
did someone need to help her speaking in tongues? I mean, things happen. Like I'm not gonna.
She is half Arabic. Okay, she is.
That's
I don't
fine.
remember where her dad's from or one of her parents.
Way to be prepared, guys.
Because it doesn't matter. She's Colombian.
The thing is that actually the people, Arabic culture was actually very excited last night during her performance because
you want to use the word excited.
I do because I'll look at like the Twitter reaction to it, right? I can't possibly go and make the same noise with my tongue that she did, like that's now a meme. That is significant in Persian culture, and they were really excited that this was used in a mainstream thing like the Super Bowl, and so Shakira,
and that is part of her culture.
Yeah, and I think that at the end. It's important, and I don't take any offense as a full red-blooded American over like a Puerto Rican flag or like
I thought it was fabulous what J-Lo did having her daughter
Lebanese. That's what it is. Thanks to Hector in the comments as always.
Having her daughter up there, having her daughter sing "Born in the USA." I think that was great. I think exactly what she wanted to do. She came out with like a feathered Puerto Rican and American flag jacket. I thought that was phenomenal. Hence why I think the J-Lo performance was a little bit better.
People are saying she was trying to represent the kids in the cages. I think trying to make that sort of political statement.
Ginned up.
I think that's kind of a reach.
You have to bend over backwards to find something wrong with this halftime performance. Do not get upset about it. It was great.
I think it was great.
Which again,
great performance.
J-Lo would happily bend over backwards for you.
I'm
Wow.
not
Where's
going
that
to
being?
entertain
Yeah.
any of the rest
Who
of
are
the
you and
conversation.
who are
And on that note,
Well, Johnny's made it awkward. And way to close out. Oh, do we have any announcements?
I'm not surprised at all that
Oh
Johnny
my
made
God.
that awkward whatsoever.
Anyways, all right. So on that note, thank you again, everybody, for watching. Last minute announcements from anybody. Jake, great meeting with Carrie Porch last.
That was phenomenal.
Last week. We will have a video of that. Maybe yes, no.
Maybe. It's up to you.
Okay. Well, I gotta edit it. I gotta make the edits to it. But I
Asking
just
me a
wasn't sure if we
question that
wanted
you
to.
hold all the
Well, I didn't
power
know if
to.
you wanted to post it or not.
Wow.
You know, but Carrie was awesome. Carrie was awesome.
So he was great. So if you don't know what we're talking
we're just gonna
about,
expand
Carrie
on this,
Porch,
okay.
Project Veritas came out to Tampa Young Republicans last month. Put on a great show, great speech that he did. The only announcement I have for everybody is that Tampa Young Republicans event is all the way at the end of the month. So I don't want to remind you now because you'll forget. But what is coming up is that the Tiger Bay Club, which is holding a millennial after hours event, right? So they have a panel of Republican and Democrat millennials going and doing a panel over a dinner. I think it's happening on the 11th, if you guys are aware.
Our good friend and a friend to the club, a friend to the show, Akash Patel, will be one of the panelists.
TBYR member, and also
Yes.
Andrea as well.
Yes.
Both we have basically representation from two young Republicans on this panel that Tiger Bay is going to be putting on. So if you can make it out to that, I think they're going to do a fantastic job
they're gonna do a great
representing
job.
us.
What, a minority and a woman representing the Republican Party?
I like it. I like it a lot, and and again, they're going to do a great job. I'll be at that event. I think that a lot of us will probably be at that
I
event
will
to
there, too.
support them because it's very rare that we get young Republicans on a panel with young Democrats because they don't like to be on our panels.
They don't like us because we can speak
Have
eloquently
facts.
and have facts, and
Yeah.
we do research ahead of time.
So go to that event, support Tiger Bay. They're a great organization.
Yes.
And then again, I'll have more announcements towards what we're doing later on. Did anyone else have anything else?
Chris?
I have one. So tomorrow I'm hosting a watch party for the State of the Union address at the local on Henderson Avenue at 7 o'clock p.m. State of the Union starts at 8 o'clock, but we're meeting at 7 o'clock. So if you want to come, join the rest of us, enjoy the party, have a couple beers, some food, come join us, and see you there.
Have you made the decision for drinking games yet?
Ooh, yes.
We'll work on it. We'll work
Yeah.
on it, guys. I think that we should.
I officially have like a
have
free
ended
afternoon.
there.
Wait, no, I have a free afternoon tomorrow, so I'm really excited that I'm actually able to hang out and like go out tomorrow. So I would love for there to be a quick.
There will be a
drinking
bingo
game.
board at some point.
Nice.
All right.
I will say this.
we are dragging.
No, we're not. So there was an announcement today that Rush Limbaugh announced that he had advanced lung cancer. Our thoughts and prayers for the show go out to to Rush, and we would love to be able to him recover and be able to continue to speak about conservatism and be able to spread that good news around. But there was a really big hit for a lot of people today with the announcement, and just our thoughts and prayers are to you, Rush.
All right. Thank you, Anibal. Best wishes to Rush Limbaugh. I mean, again, he's an icon not only for the movement, but even in broadcasting. And so hopefully that all goes well for him. We'll keep you updated on that and a lot more. We'll see you back here again next Monday, 7 o'clock, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. Make sure you follow us Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those. Subscribe, review, and especially if you're downloading us on Apple Podcasts, those reviews, man, those are worth gold. So please, give us a rating, give us, leave us a few comments. Thank you so much for watching. And again, we'd also appreciate you supporting the show, but we do it because we love it, and we're hoping to have an impact on the upcoming elections, both locally and nationally, but we can't do it without you. So thank you so much for watching. We hope to see you next time from Tampa Bay. So long, everybody.
J-Lo did a better job.
We can't let him have that. That's fine. We can